The story begins not with a single couple or a single land, but with humanity itself. Love in all its forms, gentle or fiery, pure or forbidden, has always shaped human existence. Long before ink wrote its first poem on papyrus, before marble statues captured the embrace of gods and mortals, and long before modern ideas of romance, love was already weaving the threads of history. It was not always the tender, private feeling we imagine today. For the ancients, love and marriage were public, sacred, and often perilous. To love meant to honor gods, ancestors, or empires. To marry was to fulfill duty, bind families, and sometimes to survive. But amid all of this, real human hearts beat, yearning, breaking, and dreaming just as they do now. Picture Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization. The sun sets over the Euphrates, its waters glowing like molten bronze. In the ziggurat's shadow, music echoes, drums, flutes, and voices rising in hymns to Inanna, goddess of love and war. Here, marriage was not only a human contract, but a cosmic echo. Kings performed sacred marriages with priestesses, symbolically uniting heaven and earth. Through their union, people believed the land would be fertile, rains would come, and crops would thrive. Love here was not private, it was divine economy. Now shift to Egypt, where the Nile carries secrets from one age to another. In painted tombs, husbands and wives are depicted hand in hand, gazing with eternal affection. Their bond was not seen as fleeting but as everlasting, carried into the afterlife. Yet behind these tender depictions lay rituals. Offerings to Hathor, goddess of love, perfumed oils, sacred music, and feasts where unions were celebrated not merely as romance, but as part of the great cycle of rebirth and immortality. Travel west to Greece, where love was debated in symposiums. Was it a divine madness, as Plato claimed, or a noble bond that bound men in loyalty? To the Greeks, love had many faces: eros, burning passion; philia, friendship and trust; storge, the quiet love of family; agape, divine, unconditional love. Yet their myths told darker truths. Paris's desire for Helen sparked the Trojan War. Orpheus's devotion led him to the underworld. Love was exalted but also feared, for it had the power to topple kings and bring ruin. And in India, beneath the chants of the Rig Veda, marriage was a sacred fire-lit vow. A bride and groom circled flames 7 times, each step a promise that bound not only their lives, but their very souls across lifetimes. Love here was not just passion, it was duty, dharma, woven into the cosmic order. Yet alongside these rituals, there were also songs. Folk poetry whispered of stolen glances, of maidens waiting by rivers, of love that dared to defy caste or tradition. China, too, added its voice to the chorus of love's strange history. Here, marriages honored ancestors, binding families not only forward, but backward in time. Matchmakers carried red threads said to tie destined couples together. Yet stories like the cowherd and the weaver girl, separated by the stars, reminded people that love could be both gift and punishment, fragile as the seasons. But behind the music, poetry, and ceremonies lay truths often far from romance. In many lands, marriages were arranged. Daughters were given in exchange for cattle, land, or alliances. A bride's tears were hidden behind veils, her voice silent as men decided her fate. In Sparta, love mattered little compared to duty. Brides were captured, sometimes by force, their heads shaved to resemble boys, their marriages a blend of war and union. In some African tribes, love was tested by endurance trials, the suitor proving his devotion through pain, blood, or labor. In ancient China, Some unions were arranged before children could even walk, and yet love found a way. In whispered poetry, in stolen meetings under moonlight, in tokens exchanged between lovers. Even in arranged unions, affection could grow, and tenderness could bloom where none was expected. Human hearts, despite rituals, contracts, or laws, still longed for connection. Ancient love stories became more than just private affairs. They were myths that explained the world. When the Sumerians told of Inanna's descent into the underworld, it was not only a tale of a goddess's journey, but of the death and rebirth of love itself. When Egyptians told of Isis piecing Osiris back together, it was devotion strong enough to defeat death. When the Greeks sang of Pygmalion carving a statue so beautiful he fell in love with it, it revealed love's power to create life from stone. These myths shaped how people viewed love. To love was to risk destruction. To marry was to join in divine order. To desire was to step into the realm of gods and fate. The narrator lowers the tone, preparing the audience for what comes next. But beyond the myths and the poetry lay rituals that defy belief. Sacred prostitution, where women lay with strangers in honor of the gods. Marriage lotteries, where couples were paired at random during festivals. Bride kidnappings, sanctioned by custom. Trial marriages that lasted only a season. And strange rites where the dead were wed to the living, so that no soul would wander unloved. These were not stories of gentle courtship, but of societies wrestling with love's power, harnessing it, controlling it, and sometimes fearing it. This tale will travel across ages and continents, unearthing forgotten customs, legendary romances, and rituals that shaped civilizations. It will ask, what did love mean to those who lived before us? How did they see it, as blessing, curse, or duty? And what do their strange customs reveal about ourselves today? The music swells, as though opening credits to an epic journey. For love is not just a personal story. It is humanity's oldest ritual, its most dangerous gamble, and its most enduring hope. And as we step into this history, we begin with the knowledge that love has always been more than emotion. It is a force, sacred, strange, and eternal. The narrator's voice deepens, as though guiding the audience into hidden chambers of history. Love, for all its beauty, was never simple. Behind the laughter of weddings and the perfume of flowers, there lay tensions between men and women, between passion and law, between freedom and control. And nowhere were these tensions more visible than in the strange rituals that societies created to manage the most uncontrollable of human forces, desire. The first clash came when human passion was bound to the gods themselves. In Mesopotamia, love was worship, but worship often demanded sacrifice. In the temple of Ishtar, men and women offered their bodies to strangers as sacred duty. Known as sacred prostitution, it was believed to please the goddess of love and fertility. Imagine a young woman, her hair braided with gold, standing at the gates of the temple. She is not here for herself, nor for the man who approaches her, but for a deity who demanded devotion through flesh. To outsiders, it may seem cruel or humiliating. To the people of Babylon, it was holy, an offering that kept the city alive. But such rituals also birthed unease. Could something so intimate truly belong to the gods? Or did the priests wield love as power? This tension between sacred duty and human longing echoed through centuries, leaving behind whispers of both reverence and resentment. From worship to warfare, love was not always won. It was taken. In the harsh lands of Central Asia, a custom known as bride kidnapping became a rite of passage. A young man, unable to afford a bride price, would seize the woman he desired, often with the help of his friends. She would be brought to his home, where persuasion or pressure turned capture into marriage. The scene is violent, yet strangely normalized. A girl, startled while gathering water, dragged away under the open sky. Her family, angered, would storm to the man's household, but negotiations would follow. Sometimes acceptance came. Other times lifelong feuds ignited. This ritual reveals a darker truth. Love and marriage were not always about choice. They were survival, transaction, and power. Yet in strange paradox, some kidnapped brides, over time, embraced the life forced upon them. Their stories remembered not as tragedies, but as origins of families, lineages and legends. But not all rituals carried such darkness. In the highlands of the Andes and in parts of medieval Europe, communities practiced what could only be called trial marriages. For a season, perhaps a year, a man and woman lived as husband and wife. If they found harmony, they married formally. If not, they parted ways, free to choose another partner. Picture the suspense of such an arrangement. Two strangers, brought together by family or village custom, sharing food, bed, and daily struggles. Every gesture weighed heavily. Would love bloom, or would resentment grow? The entire community watched, for this was not private. It was a test of character, fertility, and destiny. These trial marriages reveal a society wrestling with the uncertainties of human desire. Better to test passion than to bind lives in chains of misery. Yet for many, the end of a trial could bring shame, rejection, or whispers that followed them for life. In some ancient festivals, love was left to fate. In Babylon and later in Rome, there were practices where men drew lots to determine their partners for a season, or for life. It was believed the gods guided the hand that drew the name, binding people not by desire, but by destiny. Imagine a crowded festival square, torches burning, drums echoing. Young men step forward, trembling hands reaching into an urn filled with tokens. Each token bears the name of a woman. For some, fortune smiles. For others, it feels like a cruel twist of fate. Did love follow such unions? Sometimes, often not. But the lottery carried its own thrill. A gamble with the heart, played under the watchful eyes of gods and society. The strangest rituals, however, transcended life itself. In China, among certain clans, the dead were married to the dead, or the dead to the living. A young man who died unmarried might be wed to a deceased woman. Their spirits joined so neither would wander lonely in the afterlife. In some cases, families arranged for a living bride to marry the dead, ensuring his line continued through symbolic unions. The living woman would be bound to a man she would never touch. Her role not as wife in life, but as eternal guardian of his memory. Such practices reveal how societies feared loneliness, not only in life, but in eternity. Love, it seemed, was so vital that even death could not excuse its absence. These rituals, sacred prostitution, kidnappings, trials, lotteries, ghost marriages, were more than curiosities. They were humanity's attempt to tame love's wildness. Yet in every attempt, tension brewed. What of the woman who resisted? The lover who defied? The man who challenged tradition? The narrator's tone grows heavier. For every ritual meant to bind love, there were stories of rebellion, lovers who ran away, couples who defied the gods, men and women who turned rituals into revolutions. And as history moved forward, these rebellions grew louder, setting the stage for the most dramatic love stories the world has ever known. Dun. The narrator's voice rises with suspense. Love, when pushed against tradition, could spark not only whispers, but wars. It could tear apart empires, rewrite destinies, and stain the sands of time with both passion and blood. These are the moments when love became more than a private affair. These are the great storms of history. The world remembers her name, Helen of Troy, the woman said to be the most beautiful on earth. Her story, however, is not one of gentle romance, but of fire and destruction. Helen was the wife of Menelaus, king of Sparta. Yet when Paris, prince of Troy, saw her, desire consumed him. Whether she followed him willingly or was stolen by him depends on which ancient poet one believes. But one fact remained. When she arrived in Troy, the world erupted. The Greek kings united, launching 1,000 ships across the sea. For 10 years, the war raged outside the gates of Troy. Heroes clashed, Achilles, Hector, Odysseus, all because of one woman and one forbidden love. The narrator's tone drops. Helen's story was not only about beauty. It was about how love, uncontrolled, could destroy nations. A single romance became the spark for bloodshed, showing the dangerous power of desire when it defies law and loyalty. Centuries later, another love would rock empires. Cleopatra, Queen of Egypt, was more than a seductress. She was a ruler, a strategist, a woman who wielded love like a weapon. First, she bound herself to Julius Caesar, ensuring Egypt's survival against Rome. But when Caesar was assassinated, she turned to Mark Antony, one of Rome's greatest generals. Together, they ruled as lovers, partners, and enemies of Octavian, Caesar's heir. Imagine the grandeur. Cleopatra on a golden barge, sails of purple silk, as Antony awaited her on the Nile. Their love was as much about politics as passion, but Rome saw it as betrayal. At the Battle of Actium, their forces fell. Antony, defeated, took his own life. Cleopatra, refusing to be paraded through Rome as a captive, chose death by serpent's bite. Their union, daring and doomed, was the climax of an age. It was not just love. It was rebellion against the world's greatest empire, and in the end, it reshaped history, sealing Egypt's fate as a Roman province. Not all great love stories ended in royal palaces. In medieval Japan, strict codes of honor ruled. Samurai were warriors bound by loyalty to their lords, and love was often considered a distraction from duty. Yet tales whisper of secret romances, samurai who abandoned their masters for the women they loved, risking death and dishonor. One such story tells of a samurai who fell for a courtesan. Knowing his love could cost him his life, he still visited her, night after night. When discovered, he chose death rather than abandon her. These stories remind us that in societies of rigid order, love was rebellion. To love freely was to challenge power itself. In the deserts of Arabia, another forbidden love became legend. Qays, a poet, loved Layla with a passion so great that it consumed him. But her family forbade their union, considering him unworthy. Denied marriage, Qays wandered the wilderness, composing verses so filled with longing that he was named Majnun, the madman. Layla was married to another, yet her heart remained with him. She died of grief, and Majnun died soon after. His poems etched into the memory of the desert. Their love, unfulfilled yet eternal, symbolized the power of passion that transcends rules, wealth, and even life itself. The Greeks told another tale, one not of politics or war, but of devotion beyond death. Orpheus, a musician whose songs could move mountains, loved Eurydice, but when she died, he refused to accept fate. He journeyed into the underworld itself, playing his lyre so sweetly that even Hades relented. Eurydice was allowed to follow him back to life. On one condition: he must not look at her until they reached the surface. But love is impatient. Just steps from the world of the living, Orpheus looked back. Eurydice vanished, forever lost to him. This myth revealed a truth as old as time. Love gives hope, but it also tempts despair. Desire can save us or destroy us. These love stories, Helen's beauty that brought war, Cleopatra's passion that toppled empires, Magnan's madness, Orpheus's loss, were more than romances. They were wars disguised as kisses, rebellions clothed as passion, and sacrifices carved from longing. Love had shown itself as the most dangerous of human forces, capable of uniting and destroying, of blessing and cursing, and yet the story was not over. For every climax comes an aftermath, the consequences that ripple through lives, generations, and civilizations. The stage now shifts to part 4, the aftermath of these loves, where empires collapse, traditions shift, and humanity begins to question whether love is gift or curse. The narrator's voice softens, becoming more reflective, less about passion, more about the scars and transformations left behind. The smoke of war drifted above the ruins of Troy. What had begun as a romance, Helen and Paris, ended in blood and ash. Thousands of warriors lay dead, families shattered, kingdoms weakened. For the Greeks, the Trojan War became a mythic foundation, shaping their poetry, drama, and identity. For the Trojans, it was annihilation. A city once glorious, reduced to rubble, its name forever tied to betrayal and fire. Helen herself returned to Sparta, living out her days as queen beside Menelaus. But whispers followed her forever. Was she victim or temptress? Saint or sinner? For centuries she symbolized the dangerous duality of love, capable of beauty, yet bringing destruction. The aftermath of her love was not simply a war. It was a cultural memory, a cautionary tale etched into the heart of Western literature. When Cleopatra and Mark Antony died, their love did not vanish. It became a weapon in Octavian's hands. He spread stories of Cleopatra as a seductress who bewitched Antony, painting Rome's greatest general as a fool undone by passion. This propaganda gave Octavian the excuse to seize power, becoming Augustus, the first emperor of Rome. Cleopatra and Antony's deaths marked the end of Egypt as an independent kingdom. For centuries, their love was remembered as both magnificent and disastrous. In the eyes of Rome, love had been Antony's weakness, while Cleopatra's cunning became legend. Yet for later generations, their story was not of shame, but of tragic devotion to lovers defying the world, even at the cost of their lives. The aftermath here was empire itself, Rome transformed, Egypt absorbed, and love forever remembered as both political and passionate. In Arabia, Qais and Layla's doomed love left no empires toppled, no armies clashing, but their story left something even greater: poetry that lived for centuries. Their tale became the heartbeat of Persian and Arabic literature. Poets retold their suffering, turning personal heartbreak into universal truth. Magnan's madness became a symbol of ultimate devotion, love so pure that it destroyed the self. The aftermath of their story was cultural, not political. Even today, their names are invoked when speaking of eternal love, an echo from the sands that whispers across time. For the Greeks, the story of Orpheus did not end with tragedy alone. His failure to save Eurydice became a warning. Love could challenge the gods, but it could not conquer fate. His music, once divine, turned sorrowful. The myth spread across generations, teaching that passion might bring hope, but could never escape destiny. The aftermath was not destruction of cities, but a deepening of human imagination, an understanding that love's power was bound by mortality itself. In Japan, the aftermath of forbidden loves between samurai and women outside their class often ended with ritual death, seppuku. Yet these stories whispered through the centuries, soft rebellions beneath the strict codes of honor. Their love could not change the political order, but it left an invisible mark. The recognition that even in societies of iron rules, the human heart longed for freedom. Later Japanese plays and literature embraced these themes, love versus duty, echoing the pain of those who once defied tradition. Across time and continents, the aftermath of these loves reveals a truth. Love was never just private. It reshaped cultures, toppled kingdoms, and carved scars that lasted for generations. Helen's beauty became a warning of desire's cost. Cleopatra's passion redrew the map of the ancient world. Majnun's grief gave rise to eternal poetry. Orpheus's sorrow taught humility before fate. The samurai's rebellion showed that no code could silence the human heart, as if standing at the edge of time itself. The ruins of Troy have long turned to dust. Cleopatra's palace lies beneath the waves of Alexandria. The deserts that once heard Majnun's cries are silent now. And yet, the stories remain. What survived was not the flesh of lovers, nor the stones of their cities. It was the memory of their love. From Greece to Rome, Arabia to Japan, love became immortal not through survival, but through storytelling. It was carved into poems, whispered in lullabies, painted on walls, etched into manuscripts. The strange rituals of ancient love became mirrors for humanity's deepest desires. Even today, when people speak of a face that launched 1,000 ships, they speak of Helen. When they describe devotion that knows no limits, they call it Majnun's madness. When lovers defy their families, their whispers carry the ghost of Romeo and Juliet, descendants of older tales. One legacy of ancient love is the recognition of its power. Cleopatra showed that romance could move empires. Her passion with Antony reshaped geopolitics, proving love was not always soft. It could be a weapon, a throne, a crown. Modern rulers, celebrities, and leaders still find their private lives under the lens of love, echoing Cleopatra's fate. The lesson is timeless. Desire is never just personal when power is at stake. The Greeks gave us another legacy, the idea that love could be tragic, that beauty could be cursed. Orpheus and Eurydice taught the West that passion alone could not conquer death. This belief filtered through centuries of literature, from Shakespeare's plays to Hollywood dramas. Even in today's films, the doomed romance remains one of the most powerful narratives, a thread spun from ancient myths that still tugs on modern hearts. From the deserts of Arabia, Layla and Majnun gave the world a new vision, love as devotion beyond reason. Their story seeped into Persian poetry, later inspiring Sufi mystics who saw in Majnun's madness the soul's longing for the divine. That legacy still lingers, in music, In poems, in novels that speak of obsession and purity, their names live on, whispered not as history, but as symbols of what it means to give oneself entirely. From Japan's forbidden romances came a legacy that resonates even now. The tension between love and society, desire and honor, plays, novels and films still wrestle with the same question. When the heart and duty clash, which one wins? In every culture, this dilemma repeats itself, proving that the samurai were not alone. The struggle between individual passion and collective rules is as old as humanity itself, and still unresolved. The narrator's tone grows intimate, drawing the audience close. Yes, the rituals may seem strange. Blood oaths in Rome, love feasts in Mesopotamia, ghost marriages in China, sacrifices to gods for favor in love. They seem distant, alien, almost unbelievable. But beneath those rituals, the human heart beat the same. They loved, they longed, they suffered, they sacrificed, and in that truth, their legacy is not ancient. It is eternal. Weddings today still carry fragments of the past. White dresses that symbolize purity, rings that echo eternity, vows before witnesses that recall tribal oaths. Stories of tragic love dominate novels and films, proof that the human soul still craves tales of passion and pain. Even in a world of technology and change, people search for devotion as deep as Majnun's, as dangerous as Cleopatra's, as fateful as Orpheus's. The strange rituals of love were never left behind. They simply evolved. Empires have fallen. Kingdoms have burned. Lovers have lived and died. Yet love remains, shaping, haunting, inspiring. From the bed of Troy to the deserts of Arabia, from the palaces of Egypt to the stages of Japan, love has been at once creation and destruction. Its rituals may change, its faces may fade, but its power endures. The ancients are gone, but their stories are not, and in every heartbeat, every vow, every whispered promise, their love lives on.